Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso, and I'm an associate teaching professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe, and I'm adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program. Shout out to all my students. I hope you're having a great day. It is late winter and it's 71 degrees in Chicago. I hope the weather's great where you're at. Today we are going to look at Lumion animation basics, and specifically the 4 new camera sets that are new in Lumion 2023 and soon to be 2024. All right, before we jump into it, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Search me up on YouTube, click on the subscribe button, click on the down arrow to receive all the notifications. If you are an architecture student, interior architecture student, or into digital design, there is something here for you. Help me get to 14,000 subscribers. That would be great. Also, connect with me on Instagram at my first name Alfonso _ my last name Peluso. I've been putting out a lot of top 5 videos and I've been getting a really good response on those. So come check them out. Help me get to 8,000 followers. All right, so we're going to look at preset camera paths in Lumion. And these camera paths, what we have is we have 4 different ones. We have orbit path, dolly shot, pan tilt shot, and follow object. So here we see orbit path where it has a fixed target and a fixed camera angle. So fixed target, fixed camera angle, and then it orbits along a path in a circular. Basically, the camera is moving in a circular path. A dolly shot can move in a linear path, so it uses a line path, and that can be horizontal as shown in this video, or it can be vertical. The pan tilt shot. Okay, so this is a dynamic target and a dynamic camera angle, so you can pan and tilt both vertically and horizontally. And then follow object, which I think is the coolest one. I mean, this is pretty tricky to do without a camera preset. So it follows an animated object, and it can follow it from different varying heights and different varying angles. So it has a lot of flexibility in the way that it can follow an object. And in our scene, we're going to go ahead and set up all of these camera presets. Okay, so the key to this is to be in movie mode. So in the lower right, the second button in the top row will get you to movie mode. And when you click on one of these thumbnails, you have options. You can import a camera path from another software. You can add camera preset path, or you can choose record. Today's video is all about add camera preset path. So I'm going to click on that. And the default one is the orbit path. That will be by default, and that will give you a radius of a camera. We're going to come back to that one. We're going to actually start with a dolly shot. So I'm going to click on dolly shot. And you see I have a linear line. And at the bottom here, we have free cam, which lets you look at the camera in space. Or we have on path, which is a view from that camera. So I'm going to go back to free cam. And I'm just going to orbit out of here and just see where my line is in relationship to my model. Okay, so it's way out in space here. So now we can get a good sense of where our model is based on that line. So it's just about moving that line, which has a start and an end point, moving it to where you want it to be in your scene. So I'm just going to move that over. So I'm going to move in front of the building here. And just kind of get the general location of it. So what's good to look at is over here, you have the start point and the end point. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to get the heights, which is the y-axis. I want to get those set first. So the two y-axes I'm going to set those to 1.5, and this is in meters. So 1.5 meters high for both of those. So both of those in the Y. So I'm going to move this line, not in that direction, but I'm going to move it in the Z direction, so it's much closer. Okay, so not only do the y-axes need to be the same, also the x-axis needs to be the same so that they're in a straight line. So I'm going to move that, let's say I move that to 5 meters for now. And I think I'm going to have this somewhat more into the trees. So I'm going to make that go into the trees. So maybe this is like 25 meters. Might be too far. Let's try 20. And we'll try 20 in the other direction. Okay, so now I'm in the trees. Okay, so I want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on path. And there's my on path direction. And I'm going to press play. So you see that my camera is heading straight down the line. So I want to change the camera's heading. So here's the heading setting. So that's 0. Okay, so that needed to be -90. Now we're facing the building. So I can press play. Now the key to these are, they should only be about 4 seconds. And even 4 seconds is kind of long these days for an animation. 2 seconds is probably enough to really get your point across, but we'll keep these at 4 seconds. So between 2 and 4 seconds is a good time for an animation. Now, at the moment, it's moving from left to right. So if I want it to move from right to left, I can reverse the direction. So there's a reverse direction slider here on the left. I can click on that, and now it's going to reverse the direction. So for 4 seconds, it's moving really fast, and that's due to the length of the line. So I can change the length of the line, and this is probably better to do as a free camera, because then I can just move it dynamically. So kind of zoom out, and you can see that line there. So I'm going to pull that point. Now before I move it, I wish they had an undo. But before I move it, which I already did, I want to be able to see both points. And I want to move that in the blue axis. So I'm going to move that one over, and then I'm going to move this one over. So a short distance between those two. And I want to make sure their x's are the same. So I did set those to 20 to begin with. So I want to make that 20. Okay. And the y should be 1.5 for those. Okay, let's look at this through the camera. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit play. All right, so you see we're moving nice and slow now. Okay, one final tweak I want to make is I want to move the whole line of the camera over to the left a little bit, because it starts a little bit too far to the right before it moves left. So I'll go back to free camera. So something I want to see in the future is a way to move both the camera start point and end point at the same time interactively in the screen. That would be really nice. Right now I only have the option to move them individually. So I'm going to slide this one a little bit over, and I'm going to slide this one a little bit over. Okay, something like that. So when I look through the path, it looks like this. All right, so I think we get the idea there. So that is our Dolly horizontal. So just name these as we go. See if my paste effects works. So I have to grab that from my photos. So I'm going to go ahead and copy effect list, go back over to my animation, and go ahead and paste that effect in. Okay, so those are all pasted in. Now, an effect that I'm going to add to this is I'm going to add a wind to all of these. So that can be found under sky weather, and we can choose wind. And we'll see we have a wind speed, and we have a wind direction. So I can change those. Okay, so I just want to add that. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this effects list so I can continue pasting it into my new camera. So now I'm going to go over to camera 2, and again I'm going to use add camera preset path. And this time I'm going to use Dolly shot. And this time it's going to be a vertical movement for the Dolly shot. Okay, so let's look at free cam. And that allows us to see our camera view. Okay, so go ahead and move this. Get it in front of the building. Okay, so that's the start point. So I'm going to start low down, and then this is my endpoint. So what I'm concerned about is the y-axis for right now. So the y-axis, I'm going to lift that one up, and then I'm going to lift this one up, and then I'm going to match both the z and the x. So that's my start point. So we'll say that it's going to be 6 and 6. And then I'll do the same thing for the endpoint, 6 and 6. Okay, now it's just a matter of the camera heading, which you can change over here or you can change down here. So we'll change that heading. We'll try -90 again and see if that works for us. Okay, and now we'll look through our path. And we are inside. So let's move out a little bit. So let's go to free camera. So we need to move out of the building. So that is going to be our X direction. So let's try 8 and 8. And let's see if that moves us outside. Yes, I want to be just a little bit further out. So we'll try 10. It's kind of a dramatic scene washing up the facade. So we're going to make this 4 seconds too. And we'll check our speed. It's a little fast. So what we should be changing here is the Y value. So it starts at 3.87 meters and goes up to 8.25. So maybe it only goes up to 6. So we'll try it from 4 to 6. So remember, we want small camera movements. Okay, now it's moving up the building at a nice slow pace. All right, so that is our Dolly shot vertical. So that takes care of the Dolly horizontal and vertical, which was our second option for our new camera presets. So now I want to look at orbit path. So I'll click on the number 3 thumbnail. And once I double click on it, I can choose add camera preset path. And okay, so that's the first one. That is the orbit path. So this is using a radius with a fixed target, and the camera moves along a radial path or a circular path, and the target stays fixed. So we want to get a look at this. So I want to go to free cam and just look at what we have. There you have the radius. So the radius would need to be pretty large to move around this building. So let's try 25. Okay, and then we can see what that is, and we'll make it at a height of 1.5 meters. And now we just have to zoom out and get a sense of where this thing is starting and where it's ending, and we can see it here. Let's get it more in relationship with the building. Okay, now we can see it in relationship to the building. All right, so the target point is something that you really want to look at with this orbit path, because you can see the target point right now is at 0, 0, 0, or the target point, or what Lumion calls the focus point. So we can move that. We can move that into the into the center of the project, and we can raise it up. Right now it's at 0, so I can change the Y to 1.5. That picks it up a little bit. Okay, so over 4 seconds, which is what we're shooting for, that is a long way to move over 4 seconds. So that's going to be really fast. So we want to change the start and the end angles. You can do that just by clicking on the little dots and moving it in. So there's my start, and then my end. I can move that closer. So we're still moving on a circular path, but we're just moving a short distance between the start and the end angle. So if you press play, you'll see that camera moving along the path there. Ever so slowly. Okay, so what does that look like when we look through the camera? So we go to on path. Okay. So besides being in the tree, let's see what we have here. We also have the option to reverse the direction. You can click that little toggle on. So since we're only animating over 4 seconds, the orbit path really isn't that interesting for a 4-second animation. To move over a circular path, you need a long time. And I'm not a big fan of orbital paths, or I should say circular paths, because they're like being on a tilt-a-whirl. It's like an object on a wheel that spins around is what it looks like. And I prefer the linear paths versus the circular path. So I would much rather have a linear path. But it is an option, and I wanted to show you how to do it. So let's move on to our pan and tilt shot. So let's just kind of finish this one off. We'll add our effects to it. We'll go ahead and rename it. So this is going to be our orbit path. Okay, so the next one we need to make is a pan and tilt shot. So we'll go ahead and click on thumbnail number 4, and we'll choose add camera preset. And we will choose pan tilt shot. And remember, we can do this both horizontally and vertically. So horizontally is pan and tilt is vertically. So let's start with our pan. So you see it's very similar to an orbit path when it's horizontal, when you're just panning. And similar things we can do is we can change the start and the end angle. We can reverse direction, little button right here, flip start and end. So now you see it's moving, it's going to move in that circular direction. Let's lower the animation to 4 seconds. So we don't have a radius with this. So that one is one of the nicer things about the orbit path is we have a radius with it. So we can move this horizontally. So if I just press play, you're going to see the little camera just moves across that little distance. So again, very similar to the orbit path. So instead of moving horizontally with a pan, let's go ahead and move vertically with a tilt. So I'm going to switch this to tilt. And if we zoom into that, we can see if we press play, it's going to go from the bottom up to the top. So we just have to be facing the building in the proper direction. So we'll do that with our heading. So for our heading, we're going to type in -90 again. Okay, that's going to make us face the building. And now we just have to move it out in front of the building. Okay, let's look at that through the camera. All right, so we want to move it over a little bit. So I think that is the Z. So let's try 10. Yeah, it's a little far. Let's try 5. Okay, great. And we can do things like adjust the focal length. We haven't looked at that yet. So I'm going to adjust the focal length to 20. So it's a wide angle camera that's pretty wide without getting distorted. And let's see how that moves over the 4 seconds. Okay, so that's looking up. So I'm going to have it flip that direction and start from the top and tilt my way down. So again, another dramatic pass for the camera. Much like our horizontal dolly shot where we moved across the facade horizontally, now we're going to move it in a tilt from top to bottom. Okay, let's add our effects to this one. We'll go ahead and name it. We'll call it tilt. Okay, we'll move on to the last one, which I think is the most exciting and most fun. That's going to be the follow object. Okay, so we're going to need to go to build mode and put in an object for it to follow. Okay, so let's turn off the trees for a little bit here. Okay, not everything is layered greatly. Great. Okay, so you see we have a person on a bicycle placed in here. So we need to animate that person on a bicycle. It's an animated person, meaning its feet are moving and it's pedaling the bike, but the bike is stationary. It's not going anywhere. So we have to animate that via an animation effect. So we'll go back into our movie mode. And we're going to click on thumbnail 5, and we're going to choose add camera preset path. And this time we're going to go to follow object. And it wants us to select an object to follow, so we need to zoom out here and find our guy on the bike. So here he is. So we got to click on select target object from the menu, and then we'll click on our biker. And then there's a bunch of stuff that we can do, but before we get into that, I need to animate this bike. So I'm just going to spin around here a little bit. Okay, so to animate that bike, we need to add an effect. So for right now, we'll click on our check mark. And for this particular scene, we're going to paste in our effect stack. And then we're going to add, under animation, we're going to add advanced move. Okay, so we don't have this clip set yet over 4 seconds. So I want to do that. I want to go to edit clip and I want to set it to 4 seconds. So we get our start and our end point, because we have to add keyframes. So we're going to click on edit and we're going to add a keyframe at the beginning. So it's important that we select the object that we're going to animate. So we're going to select our biker, and then we're going to click on the add keyframe. So that's where he starts. And then we'll move it all the way over to 4 seconds. And then we'll move our biker, and that's going to automatically add a keyframe for that. We just need to know if that's the right amount of, or the right distance to move over 4 seconds. It looks like he's moving kind of slow, so maybe we can move him a little bit further. So let's go to our 4 seconds. Click on edit. And we'll move him a little bit further. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, so we'll play it. Okay, so now the fun part happens. The fun part is now. So we're gonna go into edit, clip, and you can see the camera angle. And we can change that angle so that kind of orbits around him 360 degrees. So I'm gonna go behind him. And then we have a range. So I wish there were sliders for all these, but there's not. So we have a range. So this is how close to the object that we're following, how close we're going to be. So let's get really close, like 0.5 meter. And then the height, let's get really low, like 1/4 meter. And let's go to the on path so we can see what it looks like through the camera. All right, so let's move out a little bit away from him. So let's try 0.75 or 1. And I want to move a little bit away from the bike, like on an angle. Yeah, something like that. So just like a really cinematic, dramatic camera feel. Okay, and it's looking at the target. If I unhide that, it's not looking at the target, or if I untoggle it. So I want to look at the target. Let's press play and check it out. So there we are, following the bike along, which is super cool. So let's make sure we name it. This is our follow object. Okay, so the last thing I want to look at is how to render these out. So you can render out the whole movie, which would render out all 5 of these, or you can render clip. I recommend rendering clip because with the whole movie, if you render out the whole movie at once and the computer crashes, you have nothing. And it's a lot to render out at any given time. That could take days to render out. So I would look at rendering out the clips. So you can, when you're over the clip, there's a little fly out menu at the top, and we can choose the center one, which is render clip. So we can click on that. And for output quality, you have draft, no anti-aliasing. You have good with some 4-time anti-aliasing. You have 8-time, and you have production quality. It's all about how fast your computer renders and how much time you have. Yeah, ideally, I would want production quality because it has no flickering in it. What you saw at the beginning of the video was good quality, and there was a lot of flickering in that. So if you have the time to do it, you're going to want to render out at production quality. 30 frames per second is enough. And high definition, which is HD, 1280 by 720, that will work. That will save you some time, and it's still a high definition quality. So you'll click high def, and then you'll just specify a file name, and then that will render out. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Click on that like button, and if you click on the like button, let me know why in the comments. All right, my head's going to pop up in the upper left. Go ahead and click on that if you haven't subscribed. I'll put some associated videos on this topic in the upper right and the lower right. All right, have a great one, and I'll see you next time.